What's happening, guys? Sam Adams here, and welcome to a brand new episode of Caffeinate. Today, for February the 28th of 2019, the end of what I consider to be the longest February of my entire life. My name is Samuel Adams, and welcome to today's show. Now, for those that don't know what this actually is, this, my friends, is a daily gaming news podcast where I bring you the hottest gaming news from around the industry, and I pack it up in one tight, neat little podcast for you to enjoy in the evening, in the morning, whenever you might be diving into it. You can always find the hottest gaming news right here on Caffeinate. Now, with that being said, what are we going to be talking about today? First off, the Borderlands developer Gearbox is promising reveals at PAX East, and let me tell you right now, it could be Borderlands 3. Very excited about that. On top of that, Fortnite has a new Weezer-themed island that is incredibly interesting, and also, I'm not complaining because, hey, I love Weezer. Resident Evil 2 has shipped 4 million copies in its first month. Now, Horizon Zero Dawn has shipped 10 million copies in 2 years. So we'll talk about both of those. Halo Infinite is set to be a spiritual reboot, according to Bonnie Ross from 343. Breaking news, Modern Warfare 2's campaign Remastered has been rated for PS4 in Europe, and Alien Isolation is getting a brand new web series thanks to IGN. So we'll talk more about all of these things, but to those hanging out live in the chat, including Rex Titan, welcome on in, glad to see you, and without further ado, let's go ahead and dive into it. First off, Borderlands developer Gearbox is promising reveals at a PAX East panel. The schedule for PAX East panels has been finally revealed, showing what people can expect from the show in Boston at the end of March. One of those panels is from Gearbox, the Texas-based developers of games like Borderlands and Battleborn, and promises never-before-seen reveals on stage at the panel. Speculation is rampant that this could finally be Borderlands 3. The third game in the series has been long anticipated, as Gearbox has not released a numbered Borderlands title since 2012. Spin-offs have varied critically, but series fans have been eagerly anticipating a new game that hews closer to the Pandora titles that came out before. During last year's Walmart E3 leak, where the retailer accidentally posted a number of games ahead of their E3 announcements, Borderlands 3 also appeared on the list. Though it was not the only exception to the list in terms of announcement confirmations, Take-Two did announce that they delayed a highly anticipated shooter into fiscal year 2020, and it's possible that this game may be Borderlands 3. It is hard to say, and ultimately the reveal could simply be a new magic trick from noted magician Randy Pitchford, but for fans eager for a looter shooter with a heavy focus on guns, a third Borderlands is a tantalizing prospect. We certainly will not have to wait long to find out which one it is, and this is a very exciting piece of news for those like me that don't necessarily even like playing games like Borderlands, but do like the genre, the appearance, and also just enjoy the overall vibe from a community that loves this kind of thing. Now, if Borderlands 3 is announced, will it be coming out in 2019? As the article does hint, and as we have seen previously, there has been a rumor of a game being pushed back to 2020, which very well is likely Borderlands 3. So I would expect this to be somewhat of a reveal, and then a definitive release date won't be given, but more so a time frame of when you could expect the game. Again, if this is to be believed. Now, with that being said, PAX East is a big time for game development companies to reveal new announcements and new games, but on top of that, to also reveal a ton of updates and stuff along those lines. But it is very exciting. Now, Rex Titan in the chat has a good point. Fiscal year 2020 does technically start in 2019. It doesn't necessarily mean calendar year 2020. So I very well could have been wrong on that, and we could be seeing it in holiday of 2019, which changes the game drastically. That was a good point. So if you are curious as to what the future of not only Gearbox, but also potentially Borderlands holds, I would definitely pay close attention to their panel at PAX East in March. But very exciting stuff, because again, this company is just riddled with incredible talent from across the industry that is really, truly working on some pretty impressive things, I believe. So we'll see what those things are whenever PAX does roll around towards the end of March. But right now, looks like some big stuff coming down the pipe. Now let's talk about this Fortnite Weezer Island, because of course there's a brand new season, Season 8, which launched in Fortnite today, and there of course are a lot of changes to the map, new guns, new stuff like that, but more importantly, there is now a giant Weezer Island. So we'll talk about that for a minute. Fortnite is no stranger to brand collaborations. The world's biggest game teamed up with the world's biggest movie franchise for a one-of-a-kind Thanos game mode, and that was pretty cool. Electronic musician Marshmello once held an in-game concert in Fortnite, a combination that makes perfect sense given the visible overlap in audiences. Today, though, Epic Games has released the most baffling combination of 2019 thus far, Weezer and Fortnite. In addition to introducing a new volcano-filled season to the world, Epic Games also placed a jukebox on a creative mode island that only plays Weezer songs. It sounds like my car rides. The collaboration is likely meant to advertise Weezer's 2019 albums, known as the Teal Album and the Black Album, but even so, one can't help but ask why. Here is a theory. And I think it's a pretty good theory at that. Resident Weezer nerd and Polygon News editor Allegra Frank explains that being a Weezer fan means having a pretty inextricable and at times inexplicable connection to a plaintively vulnerable soul. A little bit deeper than we need to go, and few video game genres make you more vulnerable than Battle Royale games. But even taking that into account, can you imagine an army of 9-year-olds flossing to Buddy Holly? Okay, maybe I can picture the Take the L emote playing over Say It Ain't So, the author says. And it's also worth noting that Weezer frontman Rivers Cuomo seems to tweet about Fortnite a lot. That's probably how this collaboration happened in the first place, if we're being realistic about the entire situation. Now, with that being said, exciting to see that this collaboration is happening. Of course, will I be diving in to check it out? No, probably not. Just because Fortnite really isn't my cup of tea anymore. If I'm playing anything, it is likely Apex Legends or something similar to that nature. But overall, glad to see this collaboration. Very cool to actually know that Rivers, the lead frontman for Weezer, is actually playing Fortnite with his daughter whenever he is not on stage rocking the world. So, if you do want to dive in, again, Season 8 is filled with a whole bunch of changes to Fortnite, many of which I have seen are positive in the community. There are no more planes, a lot of the guns have been vaulted, of course there's a lot of changes to roll out throughout Season 8, so you can always check out the new updates, which pretty much launch on a week-to-week basis at this point. But without a doubt, crazy to see that Fortnite is still continuing to grow, and of course, it's going to be a big game with Season 8 upon us on both Mixer, Twitch, YouTube, whatever you might be watching. You will be seeing a lot of Fortnite around. And again, it is a very charming addition to the game. But let's talk about games that are making some money and selling some copies, because Resident Evil 2 Remake has shipped 4 million copies in its first month. Capcom's well-received Resident Evil 2 Remake has shipped over 4 million units during its first month alone. The game launched on Xbox One, PS4, and PC back on January the 25th and initially shipped 3 million copies in 4 days. That means another 1 million units have been sent out in the days since. If the remake can maintain that momentum, it might soon eclipse the 4.96 million sales pulled in by the 1996 original, which is currently the 4th best-selling entry in the franchise to date. So what we have here is pretty much the confirmation that Resident Evil 2 made a pretty big wave when it actually launched. And again, I do want to reiterate that it is more than likely going to eclipse the original very soon in terms of sales, quite frankly, because 4.96 million sales is actually the entirety of that game's lifespan. That is how many copies Resident Evil 2 sold while it was on store shelves. And so whenever you compare that to its first month, and you're already almost there, it's crazy to think that this game is going to do much better than its original counterpart. Of course, no shock, because Resident Evil 2 back then was a brand new name and more or less a relatively new franchise. And since then, it has risen to popularity and really fame as more and more people have started to play Resident Evil and as more games have come out to really shape where survival horror is as a genre today. So to see it doing so well is no surprise, and also on top of that, if you have not played Resident Evil 2, it is a fantastic game in terms of mechanics. On top of that, the game itself is absolutely stunning. It truly is just a beautiful experience, and one that is also very scary. There were times when which I actually did scream when something fell off the ceiling or lunged at me all of a sudden from a shadow. Truly a very fun game. So again, if you do want to check it out, it is my game of the year so far, because again, you know, a lot of games coming out in 2019. But it is out right now on the Xbox One, PS4, and the PC. And you, yes you, could be one of the 4 million plus that have already taken part. Now moving on to the next big sales number of the day, Horizon Zero Dawn has passed 10 million copies sold. Horizon Zero Dawn, which is celebrating its second anniversary today, has officially sold well over 10 million copies worldwide. Via the PlayStation blog, Guerrilla Games managing director Herman Hulst revealed that number, saying, "The idea that we were able to bring Aloy's journey to so many players is astounding. We've been deeply moved by the enormous amount of fan creations you've posted online, as well as the heartfelt letters you've sent sharing your favorite moments from Aloy's journey." And of course, along with announcing the sales milestone, Hulst took the opportunity to reveal little-known details about the development of the game. He revealed that prototyping gameplay elements began back as far as 2010, when most of the studio was still finishing Killzone 3. Because they didn't yet have an in-game model for Aloy, they used the model for Jammer, an intruder pilot from Killzone 3, in early testing phases of the game. It appears they used this model while testing the first machine that the development team designed and finished, the robotic T-Rex Thunderjaw. But in gameplay prototyping, the beast looked more like a child's toy made from plastic bricks. This was a practical design, as each color brick represented a different part of the beast that could be shot off. And for those that don't know, essentially, within the world of Horizon Zero Dawn, there are these mechanical beasts, and you can shoot at specific points on the actual animal, and they will, again, be affected in various ways. But truly, a beautiful game at that. And of course, they go on to say more about the development of the game. But essentially, if you have not checked it out, Horizon Zero Dawn is one of the most impressive games in the PlayStation lineup for this generation, as far as graphical achievement goes. When it comes to the story, I wasn't as impressed as a lot of other people, but the game itself is still a very fun experience, and one that I really do need to go back and return to. And also, for those that haven't played it, the complete edition, or whatever you want to call it, that comes with all the DLC, is out normally for a pretty deep discount. I've seen it as low as around $10 to $15 on the PlayStation Store. Very affordable game if you do want to dive in and check it out. But the base game itself is plenty meaty enough if you do want to drive down to your local gaming shop and pick it up if you did want to check out and see what all the hubbub was about. But for a brand new franchise and a brand new name to sell 10 million copies in 2 years, that's a pretty impressive figure. I mean, it's one that definitely shows that not only was the game good, but the name Guerrilla also carries weight. Personally, I think that Killzone Shadowfall was a critically underrated game for the PlayStation 4 generation, one that had a beautiful multiplayer experience, but also that encapsulated what makes Guerrilla such a good studio. They just had beauty and they had solid gameplay mechanics, both of which were existent in Killzone Shadowfall, but also very much so evident in Horizon Zero Dawn. So again, if you do want to join the over 10 million people that have checked out this single-player experience, then by all means, you can dive in. And a big point from Rex in the chat makes me happy to see all these single-player games making the numbers they deserve, without a doubt. Of course, tons of people have been saying single-player gameplay is dying or dead, and multiplayer and Battle Royale will rise to the top and continue domination. To some degree, there is some validity in that statement, but overwhelmingly, single-player campaigns and single-player experiences are going to be the meat of the gaming industry, just because of the stories that can be told, the way that they really do impact players. I mean, look at Resident Evil 2, one of the biggest games of the first chunk of 2019, and also, notably, getting much better reviews as compared to something that is multiplayer-centric, such as Anthem. I'm not throwing any stones, but I'm just saying. However, let's talk about a game that is obviously going to have both single-player and multiplayer. Halo Infinite, of course a hotly anticipated Xbox One / hopefully PC game, is going to apparently be a spiritual reboot according to 343. As part of IGN's Unfiltered video series and their continued talk with Bonnie Ross, head of Microsoft's 343 Industries, a little bit was talked about Halo Infinite. The next game in the venerated first-person shooter series has already been announced, but Microsoft hasn't talked much about the new game. Ross has indicated that 343 wants to go in a new direction with the game, however. During the interview, Ross indicates that the studio is thinking of Halo Infinite as a spiritual reboot after getting their legs stable on the previous two games. Quote, "There has been a lot of introspective time to really reflect on what's done as 343, Ross told IGN. Where have we made mistakes? Where have we hit it right? What does Halo mean to all of us? That trailer for Halo Infinite we did is what Halo means to the studio. Maybe it took us 2 games to get there, and I think we've done good things and bad things, but what does Halo mean to us? It is about hope and wonder and heroism and humanity and community and bringing a community together. That's what the trailer is, and that's what we want to do." There have been rumors that Halo Infinite will focus more on RPG mechanics and branching story paths than series has before. This might fit in with Ross's description of Halo Infinite as a soft reboot for the series. The game is speculated to be a launch title for the successor to the Xbox One, which is more than likely going to also be announced at E3 this year. So, in my own humble opinion, I think what we're going to be experiencing whenever E3 rolls around in June is a reveal of a brand new console. We're going to get a whole bunch of specs, a whole bunch of nice images of what the console itself looks like, and then we are going to see the lights dim down and all of a sudden a Master Chief or a giant Halo ring or something like that comes into fruition. And of course, that sounds beautiful to me because I absolutely adore Halo. As a matter of fact, I love Halo so much that as somebody who had built a giant library of PlayStation 3 games, I specifically sought out an Xbox 360 just to get into Halo back in the day whenever I was in, I think, early high school, late middle school, something along those lines. Truly, just a really great experience. So without a doubt, excited about Halo Infinite. Definitely interesting to see it taking a different approach instead of being a traditional Halo game, but we've seen this type of thing before. I mean, whenever you think about Resident Evil 7, for instance, with Resident Evil on the Mind, it completely and totally changed most of the mechanics that made a Resident Evil game up until that point. On top of that, a better example, think about God of War. I mean, if you go back and you look at God of Wars 1, 2, 3, and also the other ones that have been intermingled in there, you have a very vastly different game as compared to what we got in 2018's God of War, which by all means was the best God of War out there. The mechanics were overwhelmingly different. The character of Kratos wasn't an angry, chaotic individual. He was somebody who was very mature, somebody who had a lot of soul to him, and on top of that, just a very different style of gameplay mechanic overall. A lot of varied, differences between the original God of Wars and the new one that came out last year. But my point is, a game can be completely and totally turned on its head and make something new and beautiful and completely and totally realign a franchise that has gotten stale. That's what happened with God of War, and whether we want to admit it or not, that's largely what has happened with Halo as well. Now, how does that translate over from a story-based hack and slash with God of War to something like a first-person shooter classic like we've seen with Halo? Again, I'm not a game developer. I'm not on the production team. That's going to be up for them to decide and for them to ultimately pick a path for Halo to follow. But with that being said, I was a big fan of Halo 5. I thought the gameplay felt tight. I thought the story was relatively good. It was a game that I got on launch and definitely one that I'm going to be keeping my eye on when it comes to Halo Infinite going forward. So hopefully E3 will have more to come to, reveal about the upcoming Halo game. But right now, looks like it's going to be a spiritual reboot. Interesting term. Now, speaking of something getting rebooted, remastered, brought back into the limelight, one of my personal favorites of all time, Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2, Campaign Remastered, has been rated for PS4 in Europe. Could it be included with this year's Call of Duty? The Pan-European Game Information Board, otherwise known as PEGI, and you might know it from the voice that reads PEGI 18. And then your trailer starts. Board has rated Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 Campaign Remastered for PlayStation 4. No such remastered release has been announced by Call of Duty publisher Activision. A Modern Warfare Remastered was released for PS4, Xbox One, and PC alongside special editions of Call of Duty Infinite Warfare in November 2016. A standalone release followed for PS4 in June 2017 and Xbox One and PC in July of 2017 as well. And so, also, as a side note, Modern Warfare Remastered is also being included as a free PlayStation Plus game for the month of March of 2019. Also covered on yesterday's episode of Caffeinate, which also was a good episode if you do want to go back and check it out. But with that to the side, this is very exciting for somebody like me, because growing up, I scoured the Modern Warfare 2 campaign looking for collectibles. I played through it probably a dozen times, all intermingled in between various multiplayer sessions of varying length, because I went for hours and hours and hours at a time on that. But unfortunately, if it is just the campaign remastered being included with this year's Call of Duty, I would be a bit disappointed, but not surprised, because this is actually, obviously, something that has been rumored for a very long time. We've been talking about the Modern Warfare 2 campaign remaster probably since around the start of the year, maybe even before that, back into the fall. This is something that has long been a rumor in the industry, and not one that I'm surprised to see, because it makes sense. You know, if you populate the newest Call of Duty game, which is more than likely, if this is the case, going to be Modern Warfare 4, with Call of Duty fans and Call of Duty multiplayer players, then you can have a campaign that doesn't focus on whatever the newest Call of Duty brings to the table. In fact, you very well could see something like we saw with Black Ops 4, where it is just multiplayer, and then for a supplemental style campaign, you can just throw Modern Warfare 2 back into the box with a new coat of paint, or even built from the ground up, and pretty much satisfy every fan that is in there wanting to play some Modern Warfare 4. So again, that's just my 2 cents, but we'll see what happens, and hopefully we will be getting some kind of announcement within the next couple of weeks, maybe at PAX, maybe at E3, but they usually leak out stuff like this to the press just to kind of generate some hype in the community, and this is actually a story that was posted just minutes before I went live, in fact 1 hour ago as of right now, but very exciting stuff, big fan of Modern Warfare, and of course, bigger fan of Modern Warfare 2. Now, for those that are fans of Alien, I have some good news for you to round out today's show. Alien Isolation is getting a new web series based on the game's cutscenes. Very interesting stuff here. 20th Century Fox has taken cutscenes and a few sequences from 2014's Alien Isolation game to create a new digital series. This is not exactly something you see every day, but Fox is going to use cinematics from Creative Assembly's Alien Isolation as a basis for a new web series. Revealed by IGN, the digital series will also rely on first-person gameplay sections from the game, shot and re-edited to fit the new format. Beyond that, the team is also creating new cutscenes exclusive to the series. The story will be nearly identical to that of the game, following Amanda Ripley's search to uncover the truth about what really happened to her mother, Ellen Ripley. For those already familiar with the events of Isolation, the new series should also expand on that fiction and offer more than just a retreading of old content. The 7-episode series will debut today in its entirety on IGN, beginning at 9 a.m. Pacific Time, 10 a.m. Eastern Time, and it was created by Reverse Engineering Studios and DV Group, and of course you can check out the trailer below. So if you did want to check it out, again, IGN has a brand new 7-episode miniseries that is based off of Alien Isolation gameplay and cutscenes, which is pretty cool. For those that don't know, the game was critically acclaimed, a pretty solid entry into Alien, and overall a pretty awesome addition to the overall lineup for the franchise. But if you did want to check out more Alien lore, if you want to see what the game might have been about, of course at this point it's a pretty cheap game. You can pick it up for a couple of bucks at your local gaming shop. But without a doubt, exciting, because this could be actually leading to more news about Alien. Of course, towards the beginning of the year, we saw the release of a mobile game that was rumored to be a fully fledged Alien game on consoles, but turned out to be false. So with the release of a mobile game, we also got the news that there is also something new in development. So hopefully this could be kind of a precursor to what very well could be a spiritual successor or even a direct sequel to Alien Isolation. But without a doubt, for those that are fans of Aliens or Alien, you can dive in and check out Alien, the web series coming out on IGN right now, if you did want to dive in and give it a shot. Maybe it'll scratch that itch you've got for some Alien information. But that wraps it up for today's show. I hope you guys enjoyed this one, and if you did, drop me a like down below if you are watching on YouTube. And of course, for those hanging out and watching live on twitch.tv/thesamueladams, I appreciate you being here as well and hope you enjoyed the show too. But for those that don't know, it's hosted 5 days a week, Monday through Friday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time over on twitch.tv/thesamueladams, then put up on YouTube and podcast services around the world. And links can be found to my Twitter down below, where you can always stay up to date. But until tomorrow, you guys have a fantastic rest of your night/day, and peace.